Murli Manohar Joshi, he had planned his Kanyakumari to Kashmir yatra, and it was being coordinated by this very young and bright and very up and about Karyakarta from Gujarat called Narendra Modi. And every time we would want to find out details of the yatra, where could we join it to write about it, we would be directed to him. And those days there were no cell phones, there was no way you could just send a message or something. But what was remarkable is that Modi ji had set up a line of communication across the country. So even if you left a message, it reached him. And you got a reply with details. So that was the first time I think some of us caught up with the yatra as it was entering Jammu or before it entered Jammu. And those are my earliest memories of him. He was, it's not that he was, what I remember is that he was not a very vocal person. He was not talking all the time, or he was not trying to sort of be all over the place. And yet silently, quietly, he ensured that the yatra reached up to Jammu. You know, people often think of Modi ji as a political leader, as a politician, or as a party person. But there are various facets to him. For instance, Modi ji, the person, even on things which he did, whatever the party assignments were, or organizing elections in these states, running the campaign, election campaign. There were some important elections, state assembly elections during that period. He would never bring himself to the fore. He is a genuinely humble person. Humility is something which sits very easy on him. We all try to be humble. We try very hard to show that we are humble. So humility doesn't sit easily on us. But he is somebody on whom humility sits very easily. At 11 Ashoka Road, media persons who were covering the BJP, they knew about his role, his importance, where he fitted in the party hierarchy. As, a general secretary those days was a very powerful person. Especially when you were in charge, independently in charge of states, or inviting them to his room. He had a small room. It's very interesting. If today's 11 Ashoka Road looks nothing like it. It was just an old bungalow, largely as it was when it became party headquarters in the 80s. You see, politicians generally tend to not have time, which is again understandable. And I think it is this lack of time which robs them of curiosity. But Modi ji was different. He was very particular about timekeeping. He was a great time manager. I recall one particular incident. I don't know for what purpose, but it was something which got over in 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And then I thought I would sit back and talk some more. But he was very curt. He was polite and curt. That meeting over, now you get back to your work, I get back to my work. Which again is contrary to politicians who like to sort of lounge around, और फिर क्या खबर है, और इसका क्या खबर है, that guy. He was never like that. And yet, he was extremely curious about all kinds of things. He was curious about how foreign governments work. He was curious about how international systems work. He was curious about how parliament works. Modi ji was curious. He was curious about how pagers worked. Those days it was about pagers. And then when cell phones first came, he was one of the first leaders of the BJP or seniors in the BJP to start using a cell phone. Modi ji's switch over to the cell phone, I think, was curiosity driven. That he wanted to know how did this technology work, and he would actually, once I discovered in one conversation the difference between an Ericsson and a Nokia phone. And so that was the level of curiosity which he had, that people started realizing that yes, you can have a government which is not corrupt. Where I remember in one particular instance, I think a contractor complained that a district collector or magistrate, whatever it is, that he is called in Gujarat, magistrate or collector or commissioner, he had taken money. Modi ji actually called that person. Now, which chief minister will actually call a district level official or a divisional level official to his office and told him that whatever I have to do with you, that will be done. That's a later thing. But you will return this money to the contractor or the supplier or whatever right now. And this is one of such many stories. Everybody talks about data and data-based election strategy today. In Gujarat, Modi ji was doing data-based election strategizing by 2007, and by 2012 assembly election, it was the core of his election strategy. I know it because we had some of our own findings as Niti, and I went and showed them to him. He just kept it aside. He said, "Nahi, ye dekhiye." And there I was sitting with quantitative, qualitative analysis, and he had everything which was far more defined, far more segregated, and far more definitive than what I was trying to show him. And I was feeling thrilled that I was doing something new. No. At 11 Ashoka Road, we had an old media briefing hall. That was the old auditorium hall over there. It was in a pretty bad state. And there was no backdrop as such. There would be camera cables all over the place. Those days the mics were also big, the television mics. And I think there was just a party flag pinned on the wall or something framed on the wall. So we decided that we have to redo this. I suggested that we should go in for a backlit background, because television studios had just switched over to backlit sets. LED sets are only now that you get these LED screens all over the place, but those days it was the big thing happening was backlit flex backdrops. The room was cleaned up, new chairs were put in, we put in hidden cabling so you could, cameras could take their feed from the behind, so they didn't have to put their mics over there. All that was fine, but the backdrop, everybody loved it. It was this huge backdrop, backlit, and it had Atalji's face with people all around him. So, it's just, say, 1,000 faces with Atalji's big face. And it had Bharatiya Janata Party written on top of it. Everybody clapped, everybody praised it, everybody was thrilled. But Narendra Modi kept quiet. And then later he told me, he just pointed out to me, and one felt absolutely crushed and sort of stupid after that. He said, "Itna badhiya to kiya." This was the way they wanted. He said, "Arey chodo. Why are you doing this press conference? मीडिया से बात करने के लिए ठीक है, बट टेलीविजन में क्या दिखाएंगे? आपका बैकड्रॉप दिखाएंगे? जनता क्या देखेगी? आपका जो नेता बोल रहा है या बोल रही है, और अटल जी का फोटो और लोग, बस इतना ही, और भारतीय जनता पार्टी। लेकिन पार्टी का सिंबल कहाँ है?" So everybody saw it, everybody approved it when it was shown as a drawing. Everybody liked the design. Everybody said, "Ha ha, bahut badhiya." Everybody praised it when it was done. He is the only person who actually spotted the fact that this huge 30 feet by 20 feet backdrop, it did not have the party symbol anywhere on it. I lost my father. That evening, I was feeling suddenly I was feeling very lonely and down. And that evening, Modi ji called me. And it was not a very long call or something. And he didn't say how sad he was, and a brief conversation. But the way he spoke, the manner in which he spoke, the way he sort of, he touched you, it was very reassuring. It was sort of very calming. So the human side of him, I think people should not only find out more about the human side, but also learn